previously I've reviewed the new 3300X by AMD, and today, as I've promised you guys, I'll take a look at the even cheaper AMD Ryzen 3 3100 CPU. Right now you should be able to get it for about $99 US, but pricing seems a little unstable at the time of writing the script. Just like the 3300X, the 3100 is a quad-core featuring 8 threads. The 3300X in terms of gaming performance did really manage to impress me in some way when ignoring the whole future-proofness aspect of it. On paper, the smaller brother, the Ryzen 3 3100, only seems to clock lower. Other than that, the specs appear to be identical more or less. Well, almost. There is in fact a very drastic difference, which I'll talk about shortly. So the following question arises for me, and maybe you ask yourselves the same question, on whether or not this CPU is any good for gaming. Is it worth spending $99 on this particular processor, or should you spend a bit more money at the end of the day? And I purposely am talking of the topic gaming so directly, since I think 4 cores these days for intense workloads, such as rendering and the likes, can't really be that good anymore, no matter how fast those cores actually work. Just as seen with the 3300X, we get the exact same stuff included here too, so we therefore get the same tiny Wraith Stealth stock cooler by AMD. For a CPU of this caliber though, it should do the job just fine, which I'll of course be checking in today's video. For the sake of completeness, I've also done tests with the Deepcool Castle 240EX AIO liquid cooler, so the results can perfectly be compared with other processors I've tested. But sure, for you guys I will be testing how the Ryzen 3 3100 behaves with worse and better performing cooling. But before we get to all that, I'd like to give a quick shout out and thank you to the PC hardware shop named Equiper for getting me these CPUs so quickly for my testing. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't be nowhere close to finishing testing this early. Hashtag not sponsored. Since I don't happen to be related to Scrooge McDuck in any way, I don't have a plethora of motherboards to choose from, which is why I'm once again relying on my trusty ASRock X570 Taichi. It of course is highly overkill for such a small Ryzen 3. Luckily we consumers don't have to wait too much longer until the long desired, more affordable B550 chipset releases. As always for all my testing, I'll be using the same old NVIDIA RTX 2080 Ti graphics card. But now back to the point I was trying to make in the beginning of the video. What exactly are the differences between the Ryzen 3 3100 and the 3300X? For that we'll have to take a look at the CCX layout. Short and sweet, the 3300X features a single core complex, the 3100 comes with 2. So in the case of the 3300X, all 4 cores are within one single complex. The 3100's 4 cores are pretty much divided into 2 complexes. The latter obviously resulting in slower communication between cores, so to speak. That's latency. Meaning in theory we should be able to notice mild to severe performance drawbacks on the 3100. Soon I'll also take care of overclocking that 3100. I'll bring it almost to the level of the 3300X in terms of clock speeds. Then we'll see how much the CCX layout really affects performance. But for now let's do a quick comparison on how the clock speeds react to different cooling solutions. With all 4 cores at full load, the 3100 with AIO liquid cooling is running at exactly 3.9 GHz. When repeating the same test with the Wraith Stealth stock cooler, we actually get the same exact result. What we can take away from this right away is that the stock cooler can handle the CPU's heat fine and is 100% up to the task, unlike some other included coolers. So not really a surprise here that the single-core boost clock turns out identical with both coolers. We are talking of exactly 3.9 GHz here too. The same behavior can also be witnessed in Shadow of the Tomb Raider obviously. A rock-solid 3.9 GHz across all cores. But 3.9 GHz can't truly be the chip's limit, I assume. I kinda feel a strong urge to overclock this little thing. The low CPU voltage sure is quite tempting. So rest assured, I will certainly be doing some overclocking with the CPU, but not today in this video. But enough beating around the bush, let's let the benchmarks do the talking. The results sure turn out interesting in my opinion. I'm kinda having a hard time believing the low clock speeds on this 3100 as opposed to the 3300X is the only or biggest reason the 3100 drops behind this much. The CCX layout definitely must have something to do with it. A 2+2 layout as opposed to 4+0 sure is a massive difference, especially when knowing how dual-core processors are being treated in games nowadays. I'm mentioning dual-cores for a reason. In very simple words, one could say AMD has glued two dual-core CPUs together in order for it to become a quad-core. Obviously, this has a massive impact on the gaming performance. In the multi-core tests such as rendering etc., while the 3100 as opposed to the 3300X still does drop behind, to me it seems we probably would be able to somewhat level out these two with the help of overclocking. But a $99 CPU surely wasn't meant for intense workloads in the first place. Maybe office duties, yeah, but certainly not the go-to choice for video editing, rendering and the likes. With keeping all that in mind, the processor doesn't even fare too badly in those aspects. But let's be honest here real quick, most of us hope and dream of a gaming CPU for as little money as possible. And could we possibly be talking of a gaming CPU here? Well, let's put it this way, it's not entirely useless for that job. While the Ryzen 3 3100 compared to the budget gaming beast 3300X does fall behind by a noticeable margin, it still needs to be said the 3100 is still significantly faster than a Ryzen 5 3400G that's based on 12nm Zen Plus. So when putting it this way, the Ryzen 3 3100 is about on par with the Ryzen 5 2600 when it comes to raw gaming performance. However, just as long as things go smoothly with only 4 cores to work with. The by now slightly dated yet highly popular Ryzen 5 2600 comes with 6 cores and 12 threads after all. While still no guarantee for success in terms of future-proofness, it's safe to assume 6 cores will last you longer than just 4 will do, at least with games that cause issues related to the core count. Crysis 3, despite it being a game that can be called very dated by now, still happens to be a good indicator, or rather example, on how a lack of cores can affect the gaming experience. Especially those minimum FPS, the 1% lows must not be ignored. They tell us right away how smooth a gaming experience really is. All in all, the Ryzen 3 3100, despite its worst CCX configuration, still is pretty good. Even power consumption and temperatures impress. At the end of the day, there's only one question: is it remotely a good idea picking up a quad-core CPU with a 2+2 CCX configuration? How things are going to look in the future in gaming, no one can really tell for sure. Many speculate and expect 8 cores more or less becoming the new standard though, since next-gen consoles apparently will play a big role in this. Albeit, the term future-proofness should not be thrown around carelessly. In my opinion, quad-cores in this very moment, for the majority of game titles, still will do a decent job. Needless to say, there surely are games already out now that already do cause issues when having a quad-core CPU inside one system. So if you want to get out of this as cheaply as possible, and if you're totally aware of the fact the AMD Ryzen 3 3100, just like the 3300X, is similar to a ticking time bomb in terms of obsolescence, the purchase of such a CPU under certain circumstances might as well be advisable. That is, if you don't want to or cannot spend that much money. At the end of the day, it's up to you really. You have to make the choice that applies to your case. I hope this video could at least in some way help with making a choice. With that being said, as always, thanks a lot for watching.